Hello and welcome to the latest installment of PSG Talking. I'm your host Ed, and on today's show we are talking all about PSG's deflating loss to Liverpool in the Champions League. But before we get to all that, let me thank all of you out there who have subscribed to PSG Talk Extra Time on Substack. Really appreciate your support. Hope you enjoy the content we've been putting out. If you haven't subscribed yet, hope you will consider doing so. It's $5 for the month, $50 for the whole year. You get access to more podcasts and articles from myself and top journalists who cover PSG. All right, joining me on the show, you've heard him here before, but so pleased to have him back. Drew, you may know him as Le Chiffre on X. Welcome back. Always a pleasure to have you on. Kind of sucks that we have to have you on to talk about this frustrating match. So we'll get into it, but let me just ask you, how are things on your end other than this disappointing defeat?
Things are doing well. Work's doing well. Stock market's treating me pretty good this year so far. Just ready for this nice spring weather here in the Midwest. So just moving the ball along nicely in the year 2025 so far.
There you go. Well, I'm pleased to hear that. All right, let's get into this match. So PSG, they fall 1-0 to Liverpool at the Parc des Princes in the first leg of the round of 16 tie. We're now a few hours removed at the final whistle. We're recording this on Wednesday night. And so I figured the best way to do this is just to take things in order. So let's start with the beginning, the starting lineup. So Luis Enrique, he went with Donnarumma in goal, predictable. I think a predictable back four. In the midfield, he did opt for Fabian Ruiz over Warren Zaire-Emery, which I think we kind of knew Zaire-Emery had been a little bit injured. Desiree Doué was on the bench to start. That might be the biggest if you want to call it a complaint, the biggest thing that stands out in the starting lineup. And then up front, you've had Barcola, Ousmane Dembele, and Kvara up front there. So I didn't see too many issues with it myself, but I'm curious to hear from you. Do you think Luis Enrique got anything wrong with this starting lineup?
No, I think the lineup was pretty much what a lot of us had predicted. You know, it was kind of coming down to mainly like the attacking line for the most part, whether it was going to be Kvaratskhelia or Desiree Doué. Both seemed to be in, blistering form, like, along with most of our players in the team. Fabian Ruiz, I think we all knew he was going to start because Zaire-Emery just, since that knock he picked up after the Stuttgart game, really hasn't been 100%. So to start him in a match like this, the biggest match of the year so far, would have kind of been an iffy call. So, yeah, no issues with the starting 11. I think this has been the starting 11 we pretty much had for most of the bigger matches now that Kvaratskhelia is here. So, yeah, no issues with the 11 that, we started out with today at the Parc.
Any issue with Doué not starting? There was some. I mean, he's been in great form, and and clearly, as we'll get to, the strategy was to come out and try to score a goal and really put Liverpool on their back heels there. Would it have been better to have a player like Doué who's so creative on the ball and can kind of create something out of nothing, as opposed to maybe the safer option in Fabian Ruiz? Just in retrospect and looking back, I mean, do you think that would have been a better decision?
In hindsight, considering how much possession we had, I didn't see us, completely dominating Liverpool in ball retention, ball recovery, duels won, chances on goal, et cetera, et cetera. So I think if we would have known that outright, then I think we could have went with more of just the two holding, which would have been Vitinha and João Neves, and then Desiree Doué a little bit more pushed up in that midfield three. But I think, Enrique and a lot of us other, PSG supporters thought that, we probably would have went with a more safer defensive midfield three with Fabian being in there. On the attacking sense, would you rather have Kvaratskhelia or Doué there or Fabian? Kvaratskhelia and Doué, they're both outstanding players, so versatile, good going left, good going right, good finishers. So you can't really say whether it was a bad decision or wrong decision. I think it was good that, Enrique kind of started off with the more defensive midfield three. And it seemed to be, the right decision. Had we would have put one of those two goals away, early on, the game would have been a lot different. But you can't really say, him not starting, the match with Doué was the wrong decision because, Kvaratskhelia came out of the gate running. He was up for it tonight. Just because he's only been at the club for maybe about a month and a half, and he's already hit the ground running. And tonight was one of the big nights where he could have really showed what his transfer fee was worth. So I was content with the 11. Due had his chances. We'll get into that later on here in the pod. But, for the most part, it was pretty good. Pretty good starting 11. So absolutely no complaints so far.
Yeah, it was sort of refreshing, right? I mean, as PSG fans, as you and I are, we go back and, even back to Laurent Blanc early in the QSI days, there was always experimenting, playing players out of position, or maybe a player had been starting and all of a sudden they're benched. And it doesn't matter the manager. We've seen it over the years with different managers. Whenever we've got these big Champions League games, it was always like, well, what is the surprise? It's kind of refreshing that we didn't have a surprise. And I think I definitely agree with you. I think the starting 11 was exactly what many predicted. I thought they played very well. You could have maybe made a change here or there, but I don't think at the end of the day the team would have played any differently. So I guess the overall point is it was just nice that this was we now have a starting 11 that we know that he's going to go with in the Champions League, and more importantly, the players know so they can mentally prepare.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the biggest thing that we've kind of really seen, and that kind of started last season, was just the consistency for the most part in, the starting 11. Yeah, you have some changes here or there, whether it's a League One match or a Coupe de France match. But for the most part, most of the bigger League One matches and the Champions League matches like today, we pretty much have a solid, consistent 11. We've had some players exit the club, but for the most part, related to this season, he's kind of gone with the same lineup for the most part. I think that's something that like a lot of us really wanted, and most of the bigger clubs have that stability. You look at, some of the bigger Champions League teams over the, recent years, Madrid's, the Bayern Munich's, even the Liverpools that we played today years ago, they kind of always have that consistent 11 so that the players have that cohesiveness, that fluidity. They know their spacing. They know where, they're going to be marking players, where they know they're not going to be marking players. They know where there's might be space left in behind to have that defensive recovery, to play the ball into space, to have those kind of like natural first instincts for the players that they're around, week in, week out. So it's a really good, refreshing thing that we have that now. And, I think one of the biggest things that probably we haven't spoke on is that, knock on wood, we haven't had really any injuries either. So I think that's one of the biggest things that has kind of slipped under the radar, over the last year, is that we haven't really had a lot of injuries for the most part that really kind of throws a wrench in the spokes to these big Champions League matches where someone's, coming off a bad knock, whether it's Verratti or Neymar or Marquinhos or whoever the case may be. One of the, more pivotal players in the starting 11 is not 100%. We're not having that, at this moment. I don't know if it comes down to the medical staff or if it's, the players or the big new fancy training facility that we have, on the outskirts of Paris. But something has really changed, and the consistency of the starting 11 has really been paying off, and it shows. It truly does.
Yeah, we brought it up on previous podcasts. I think it was Vitinha after one match, and he said, credit. Maybe it was the Manchester City. He said credit to Luis Enrique and the whole staff there for keeping the players fresh and rotating. And it's nice that these players know who's likely going to start in a Champions League match, and other people know, hey, it's a mid-table league on team I'm probably going to play, or if it's a Coupe de France. So the players are starting to fall into their role. But the way that Luis Enrique is, that does, just because you maybe are a cup player that you're going to start, that doesn't mean you can't work your way up. I mean, we saw Safanov coming in goal for Donnarumma early in the Champions League. So, you can get your opportunities if players aren't performing. And I think that speaks to the overall sporting project, that's what Luis Enrique wants. He doesn't want, like and Mbappe, who knows he's going to play all the time and he's beyond being subbed out and that kind of thing. So we're starting to see that sporting project. So let's get more into this game. So I thought at the beginning of the match, the atmosphere at the Parc was just incredible, as it always is. I mean, that's the one thing we knew that was going to be there for the team. And I thought that the team really responded to that energy. They started fast. In the 20th minute, it was Vitinha. He picked out Kvara on the right at the top of the box, and Kvara had this just incredible curling shot that beat Alisson. And as we'll talk about with Alisson later in the match and how many saves, it really speaks to how well placed this shot from Kvara was. Ultimately, though, it was called offside by literally hit the back of his heel. It was so close. So unfortunate for PSG. Can't really argue with the call, but just thoughts on the movement for that goal, PSG's fast start. Were you pleased with how they came out and really attacked Liverpool?
Yeah, it showed, it showed we were up for it. It showed, that this team has a belief in their spirit and their style of play that, no matter who we go up against, because, you think back to the beginning of the Champions League draw in the league phase, we had the toughest draw statistically, and I was thinking about that this morning, before the match was that, that was pretty much a blessing in disguise, having those tough games early on, which prepared us for that, kind of do or die match against Man City. And this game now, like right off the bat, you just showed that we had no fear, coming out in that first 15, 20 minutes, leading up to that offside goal. And if it wasn't for, a heel, a couple studs, for Kvaratskhelia coming back on side when the ball's played to him, that would have put us 1-0 up. What a finish, I didn't really watch him that much, at Napoli. I watched him a lot during the Euros over the previous summer, and just a lot of his highlights. But the finish that he had today was world class. Just slightly bending in, but with just enough pace to where it was beat by Allison, beat by the defenders around him to kind of block the ball going in.
It
And
might have been his weaker foot too, if I'm not
yeah, on his
mistaken.
weaker foot too. Yeah. And it just shows that, we came out of the gate strong. We had a belief in our system that, they might be the quote unquote best team in England and they're rated the best team in Europe right now. But, they have a belief, and that showed, with the Parc being behind them, the players having the motivation and just putting their place in, the Liverpool players' head that like, hey, you might think that this is a lower tier league or whatever the case may be. I don't believe that most of the professional players believe that, but the players of PSG showed them today right out of the gate after the whistle blow that, we have the ability to play at the level of any other team across, the European continent. So it was really, really good to see that, we were able to, kind of really pin them back right out of the gate. And it kind of got into their minds because I don't think Liverpool is a team that really plays, pinned back, and I think that was what really caught them off guard, and which caught me off guard. I'm sure you would attest to that, is that, I didn't really see us really dominating right out of the gate so much. I think that maybe a lot of times in these really high pressure level matches in the Champions League, teams kind of like not necessarily sit back on each other and allow possession, but it's more like they don't want to take the wrong step. And I think the commentator said that, is that like, you don't want to take that wrong step to where you get caught out of space and then the ball is played in and you concede a goal or you concede a penalty or concede a quarter kick that you don't really need to. I think it was that Paris just came out of the gate so aggressive that Liverpool had no response to that. And I don't think they're used to that because for the most part, they've been pretty much dominating most of their games in England and in the Champions League. That's why they finished first. So, yeah, it was a great start. And if it wasn't for that, I think with that goal being called offside, I think that would have kind of changed the tone of that first half. And I think we would have, not necessarily been so frantic with the finishing, the next 2 or 3 chances that we had in that first half. But I think with that goal being called back, I think it did amp us up, but I think it would have just kind of killed a little bit of the franticness of, the finishing those next 2 or 3 times that we had chances in on goal.
Not that this is scientific by any means, but I'm just curious. I haven't looked too much on Twitter X, but what are Liverpool fans saying about this match? Are they saying that this is the best team that they've played all year? Because
Yeah,
in
for
the
the
preview,
last few hours, sorry to cut you off. The last few
that's
hours,
okay.
I've kind of been sitting here at the house watching a few different sources of just, people responding to the videos, a couple sports networks and their video post-game analysis, and even just people online, watch a couple Liverpool supporter pages on YouTube and their response. I think a lot of people didn't really see this coming, and I think it's just because a lot of people don't watch the French league. We already spoke about how hard it is just to get PSG games on TV.
We can barely watch it
in North America. It's hard for us supporters, but I think they were surprised. I think that it's because for the most part, again, they haven't really played anybody this tough. They played Madrid in Anfield, and Madrid was in bad form, and they battered them. I think it was just a 2-0 victory. Correct me if I'm wrong. Maybe 2-1, but I think it was 2-0. I think Mbappe missed a penalty that game, but that was the toughest team that they played. Right. And I think they played Leverkusen as well in the league, but they won both of those games.
Yeah, and both of them were at home. Actually, Liverpool won 2-0.
2-0, yeah. So I think
in November,
a lot of the Liverpool supporters were surprised, and from what I've read, a lot of them, honest to God, were like, we got out of there by the skin of our teeth. because they knew for the most part up until the 87th minute it was going to end a draw for the most part, with the exception of the goal called back and then the Konate non-red card. I think that they weren't expecting that. I think that they had a lot of confidence, and by rightly so. But at the same time, with us being PSG supporters, I think us naturally, we don't really underestimate teams that we play against in the Champions League, whether it's Liverpool, whether it's Real Madrid, whether it's Salzburg, whether it's, PSV Eindhoven or Atletico Madrid, some of the other teams we played today. I think we just have a humbleness in the way we carry ourselves going into these Champions League matches. One, because of our history, but two, just it's teams that you don't play often, so you don't really know what to expect. So I think that some of it was your typical English arrogance, but I think a lot of them were humbly surprised by how well we played. And a lot of the pundits, the same thing. A lot of the pundits gave us the credit that was due to us. Finally, it's been taking us however so long to kind of get the pundits to respect us in certain ways, but I think that they really realized that, like, hey, like, we're a team not to underestimate. And yeah, we're going to go away to Anfield next week, but I still think that there's still a lot to play for, and they should be well aware of, unless barring another outstanding masterclass by Allison, they've got their hands full for another 90 minutes without a doubt.
100%. And over on Reddit, I think I saw someone, it was a Liverpool fan, said, so this is what it feels like to be a Real Madrid fan.
Yeah.
Just kind of just be outplayed and just steal it at the end,
Yeah.
It's frustrating. So in that first half, PSG had an XG of 1.42 to Liverpool's 0.13. PSG with 12 total shots. Liverpool had one. Liverpool had 0 shots on target. Their only shot on target, I think, in the game came when they actually scored late on, which we'll get to. So PSG just completely dominated this game. 291 accurate passes compared to 107 for Liverpool. So the possession, the corners, shots, total shots, shots on target. I mean, this was a complete domination. In the preview podcast, Ethan and I were talking, and we both agreed, like, hey, come out and try to punch him in the mouth a little bit. Like, we got to score goals. Going to Anfield, that they're going to raise their level, because that's just what happens when they're in that stadium. So we needed to score goals, and ultimately it didn't happen. But that first half, we did exactly what I was hoping would happen. And my goodness, it damn near worked. If not for Kvara's back healing calf muscle, I mean, we're up 1-0, and who knows how things change. And, speaking of that, I want to get to this, because shortly after that, that goal that was called offside in the 26th minute, it was Ibrahima Konate for Liverpool. He had a bit of a moment. So it looked like he shoved Bradley Barcola from behind, and it was, when the contact happened, it was just outside the penalty area. When it happened, I thought it was going to be a penalty. But then I saw the replay, and it was clearly outside. Okay, there was a VAR check, and the VAR check was for whether or not it was a red card, if Konate should have been sent off for a red card. And I suppose, just kind of thinking through the thought process here, that they didn't think that the referee made that much of an egregious mistake. And so they said play on. So it was never a penalty decision. It was strictly a red card, and they said no, they're going to ultimately, they deferred to the ref on the pitch who made the decision. They didn't think it was that egregious of a mistake, a missed call. So this is the moment. This is the thing that everyone's talking about. Everyone's calling it Live Our Pool, VAR in their name. And I mean, this is the thing that's trending. And you got Everton fans and everyone in the Premier League saying they always get away with this stuff. And so I was a little upset as well when I saw it, but now that I've calmed down and I've watched it, it was probably, by the letter of the law, the right call. But initially, it probably should have been, the referee should have got it right in the first place. But with the rules that are in place and the way this is supposed to work out, I think it ultimately worked out the way that it's designed to, I guess.
Yeah, VAR is always a double-edged sword, because it's very circumstantial on what the referee initially calls on the field. It seems like oftentimes when the referee will call, you take a penalty, for instance, calls a penalty on field, and then VAR will get in the referee's ear and say, hey, you might want to take a look at this, either there's simulation or not enough contact. Then the referee will go to the video monitor and re-review his original call to reverse it. Where this situation, the call initially was no foul and no red card, even no yellow card, even which is truly astonishing. But then the VAR interjects and says, "Hey, there's enough contact. We should take a look at it." So the double-edged sword. My point being is that you would think that since you do have those situations in place, that it could always be used to your advantage. If there's a call that's missed for your team that should be called, the VAR is there to intervene and correct the mistake. But in this circumstance, the call is incorrect, the VAR intervenes, but the referee still does nothing. So
it was almost like they were passing the buck. So the referee, when it happened, probably swallowed his whistle and didn't want to, because at that point, the 26th minute, you send a player off. I mean, it's kind of like Barcelona last year.
Yeah. It's
so
not
he
his
didn't want to
fault.
impact the game. And then
Yeah,
VAR
I
looked
think,
at it and they're like, well, we don't want to make the decision. You make it. And it was kind of like,
I
gave a
think
hot
that's
potato.
the biggest thing is that he didn't want to impact the game, and you hit the nail on the head. I think maybe if that phase of play would have happened 10 minutes later, maybe 35, 40 minutes in, that he might have been a little bit more lenient to at least go to the monitor. But since it was such an early call in the game, less than 30 minutes in, I think, like you said, he wanted to eat his whistle. He didn't want to have the tide shift so much to send a player off that early in the match and then the away team play with 10 men. Whether that's right or wrong, that's a debate for another day. But at the end of the day, we saw that same call with the same attacking player on our behalf have the call go the complete opposite way. And in the same situation, watching the Barcelona game, Pau Cubarsí got sent off with I think it was a scissor tackle, which is a lot worse than what Konate did today, and it was an immediate red card. So it's a very tough thing to see when it doesn't go your way. But like you said, I think the referees kind of wanted to pass along. The team in the booth wanted to just ultimately leave it up to the referee and say, hey, there's enough contact. We should take a look at it. And then I guess maybe he was just like, since you guys don't say it's clear and obvious, I'm not going to go to the video monitor to re-review it. Because I think if he would have went to the video monitor to re-review it, he would have seen that Konate puts his arm into Barcola's back and kind of extends it. How much force he puts into it, we don't really know. Only Bradley Barcola knows that. But he does put his arm into the back of him and extends it. So by the letter of the law, you're the last defender. You're not making an attempt on the ball. That's a red card.
Absolutely.
But
no, I think you're right by the letter of the law, but he didn't get it right initially. And it's interesting. I was trying to look at the clip and I saw PSG Liverpool extended highlights. And I'm like, oh, surely this moment will be in there. I could, watch it again and see if I have any other additional thoughts. And interestingly enough, that moment did not make the extended highlights on CBS's YouTube channel. Any thoughts on
TikTok.
that? That one has been edited out.
Yeah, it's on TikTok. I watched it about 3 times earlier. So it's frustrating, and something that I think you and Ethan and Mark Damon and a lot of people who've been on the podcast have probably spoke on a lot of times is that what we have to realize as PSG supporters still to this day in 2025 is we're not going to get all these iffy calls, man. Last year we got those 2 away in Spain for us against Barca in the quarterfinals, but still to this day, it just, I don't know what it is. We just don't get those highly contested calls to go our way. Why it is, I don't know. So I think it's just sometimes we just have to eat it up. And I will always remember the point that you made, that you said sometimes and almost all the time, especially in the Champions League, we have to play like we're a goal down from minute one. If you come out the gate that way, then you kind of have that eagerness and that hungerness to realize, like, hey, no matter what, we're not going to get calls going our way just because who we are as a team and as a club and the country that we come from. But, it's just something that we have to swallow. But maybe, next week on Tuesday, the tide will turn our way because of this, I wouldn't say undermining, but this clearly belligerent, incorrect call. And I'll just leave it at that.
I think Luis Campos said it pretty well. There's a video, and this came PSG report had this, and Luis Campos was yelling, "It's a red card or a penalty in any football match." He screams multiple times as the referees return to the dressing room, referencing Konate's push from the back to Barcola. So even Luis Campos, who we really don't see any emotion from, he's pretty behind the scenes kind of guy. And even he, seeing that moment got really heated. I think anyone who's ever watched a football match would know that that is something. At the very least, a foul, a free kick on the edge. I mean, nothing.
Yeah.
It's mind blowing. Did it decide the match? No. But if the red card was given, boy, that certainly changes things. As we saw against, like I said, Barcelona last year, we did get that decision, and we ended up winning and won pretty handily, I'd say. So really, really frustrating stuff. Let's keep it moving. So 30th minute, you've had Dembele and Barcola. They both had really good scoring opportunities. Allison really saved it for Liverpool tonight. Liverpool were desperate defending. PSG really had the Premier League leaders, I think, looking like a mid-table MLS team in that first half. I read some of the stats. I mean, I asked Ethan in the previous podcast, I was like, are we sure the Premier League is that good this year? Like, is this maybe a down year and maybe Liverpool are maybe people are speaking highly of them because maybe their competition in the league just isn't performing up to their normal standards, your Manchester United, your cities and that sort of thing. And I think tonight, maybe there's some truth to that because they came down to the French capital and PSG stood right up to them with one of the youngest teams in the competition and just in that first half, just ran them off the pitch. If not for Allison, I 2 goals minimum, I think, in that first half. So, and I think early in the Champions League, there were a lot of bad shots. There were shots that hit the post. There were shots that went wide of the target. I didn't see that tonight. Every shot that PSG was taking, it forced the Liverpool keeper to get down low. I mean, he was making diving one-handed saves. It was pretty incredible. So I don't think this is a case where we can really complain about PSG's attack. I thought they did everything that we could have asked. So I don't really blame them. Do you kind of share that sentiment?
Yeah, it seems like, since post, I would say November, from the Salzburg match on, whether it's Coupe de France, League One, Champions League, it seems that the clinical awareness of everybody across the board has jumped up to another level. And I think it's maybe down to the coaching staff as well, is that they've been really focusing on the players and their mindset on finishing, because the style of play, the fluidity was always really there for the most part. It took a minute, but you think back, early on in the season, we came out of the gate blazing, but then we struggled in the Champions League, but that was still, again, early on in the season. So you still had some growing pains with a lot of new players, no more Mbappe. So you had more players learning where their spacing was and then attacking third. And yeah, I can't say anything wrong with the attacking players today or any of the finishing for the most part. It was strictly down to Allison being one of the best goalkeeping displays I've literally ever seen. And I've been watching football for decades now, multiple decades. And it just shows that, he's a great keeper. The statistics, I've got them right here, pulled up. We had 75 or 70.5% possession, 10 shots on goal, if not more than that, just in the second half. So you can't really say anything wrong on what we did for the most part. I think we took the chances that we had to take, but, it just came down to, the two hands of Allison just keeping us out. So for the most part, I can't be mad. I can't be upset of what the team did or what we attempted to do and what we're capable of doing, in the next 90 minutes, because all you can really ask for is a team to do 100% in the effort that is asked of them. We haven't had that years past. A lot of the attackers that we've had, some of them, they just, you could see that they weren't given 100% or they weren't there literally on the pitch due to injury or whatever, but not this team, not tonight. They showed that they had spirit and they showed that they had fight. So, it was really, really, really promising, and hey, if we go out next week, it's like at the end of the day, we went out to me, the best team in Europe right now, barring, I don't know who we would say on a day or night who is better, Real Madrid or Liverpool. But even if we don't go out or do go out next week, we're going out against a top tier team and the best team, and we're putting up an absolute dogfight. So, all we can do is hope for the best. But yeah, the team, the fluidity today was good. It just, we just had a couple mishaps when it came to certain situations, and we can just hope that one of these falls into the back of the net. Back in Europe, or excuse me, in Europe and in England next week. So for the most part, it looks really promising on what we can do. So by all means, no disappointments at all for the finishing.
And maybe PSG will get the last laugh because maybe if they do drop out against Liverpool, no one's going to be terribly upset about that. It'll be disappointing, but we're building something. But I think Konate maybe he'll come and join PSG next this summer for next season. I think that'd be very nice. That'd be the least he could do after getting away with that decision. So. Then we get into the second half. Luis Enrique didn't make any changes. I didn't think he needed to. I thought the team was playing really well. Kvara had a really nice attempt on goal from I think it was a free kick, forced a diving save from Alisson. I mean, these moments and chances just kept coming and coming in waves. I mean, PSG were just pouring it on, and then we got to get to it. The goal in the 87th minute. I thought that let me just pull up my notes here. So it was Harvey Elliott. They take off probably the leading contender for the Ballon d'Or in Mo Salah. They take him off. They bring in Elliott. And wouldn't you know, he goes on and scores the goal, the late goal, Liverpool. They steal this game. And I got to ask you, because there's a lot on social media about who is to blame. I think Donnaruma's getting the majority of the blame. I can certainly see that. Some people are blaming Marquinhos. Some people say Nuno Mendes. When you look at that goal, think back to it. Who is to blame, or do you think it's a collective? Do you think PSG got too stretched? What do you think happened there?
I think to me, it's a collective percentage of the collective. I would say 50% is on Nuno Mendes, because if you watch it back, Harvey Elliott is higher up the pitch than him. Harvey Elliott is near the halfway line. I would say maybe not at the halfway line, but near the halfway line. But he's behind Nuno Mendes' back. So Nuno Mendes is facing goal towards the ball and towards Darwin Núñez winning that challenge of him and Marquinhos. Once the ball goes down, and that's kind of like at that split, maybe 2 or 3 seconds to where Marquinhos kind of falls down, Harvey Elliott starts sprinting towards goal. Nuno Mendes is trotting back, but he never looks back to see if there's another player behind him to his right. And you can watch this back after the podcast, and you can see he never looks back. So he doesn't know that there's another player, running in behind full speed. So I think with Marquinhos kind of falling down, but he kind of gets back up, João Neves is right there, and so is Pacho. And they kind of break up enough kind of like play for the most part, because Darwin Núñez kind of bounces the ball off his knee and then kind of plays it down into space for Harvey Elliott to come onto. And I think he had to do that because João Neves and Pacho had shifted over. But they shifted it over a little bit too much, in my opinion. And that's why they were all pretty much caught right in front of Darwin Núñez. And no one's really on that far side except for Nuno, who's one, trotting, and then two, doesn't look to see that Harvey Elliott's behind him. I haven't got to Donnarumma yet. So I think that collectively, it's a collective mistake on all of them. And one of the biggest things that I've noticed when we concede goals, and whether it's in Champions League today or in League One, is that we concede a lot of goals when like the ball's kind of like rattled around, if you get what I'm saying. And there's like no like clear winner on like a 50-50 ball, or like a ball ricocheting off someone, like the Man City game when Grealish scored, or when Haaland scored. It was kind of like a frantic phase of play. We always kind of like lose like our kind of like train of thought in those like really, really pivotal points of a game. And those are the kind of moments that like basically like today can win you a game or lose you a game. And so I think like Alisson launches the ball up forward, and it just kind of like 50-50 challenge. Núñez wins the ball, kind of comes down, bounces it off his knee, plays the ball down to the ground. Well, we kind of shift over. I think if they would have kind of held a little bit more composure, and I think they all kind of shifted over because Marquinhos fell down to the ground. But at the same time, like Núñez hadn't even played the ball in yet, and Harvey Elliott wasn't even in the 18. So I think like they all kind of frantically like kind of freaked out in their mind because it's like, minutes left in the game. And that was kind of like their biggest attempt, closest on goal in that whole second half. So I think they all kind of freaked out in their mind. And then Nuno Mendes was just, trotting. Now, the finish wasn't like the most top bins, clinical, most pace, kind of like daisy cutter finish because Donnarumma gets his hand to it. Now, your argument could be, yeah, he didn't have anything to do for the majority of the 90 minutes. So the one attempt he has on goal, he's not like fresh. But at the end of the day, you have one job.
Especially when we saw Allison make no less than like 6 of those identical
Yeah,
saves.
you have one job. If he would have made that save, and we all know how bad we are on corner kicks, if he would have made the save and the ball would have rolled out into a corner and we would have ended 0-0, we wouldn't be having this conversation right now. But he doesn't, and he gets his hand to it. And I think that's the worst part is that if you get your hand to it, a lot of the time you could probably save it. Like I said, I never played goalkeeper when I played. That's just not my position. So kudos to anyone who wants to play that position. I was never tall enough, and it is what it is. That's why I'm not in the NBA either. But I just feel like sometimes when you need to count on our Italian goalkeeper, he still lets us down. Because I highly doubt that if the tables were turned and Liverpool dominated us in possession, shots on goal, everything that we dominated them against today, Donnarumma would have came up with a masterclass like Allison did. I highly doubt that. So, you can say what you want to say about Donnarumma. You can say what you want to say about, the goal itself. Some people wanted to scapegoat Marquinhos. I don't want to name names. I don't think necessarily it was his fault because even though he did get up, he still got up on his feet before the goal went in and tried to make a play on the ball. But yeah, I just feel like it was a collective mistake on all 4 of them. And it was a complete smash and grab. And I was gutless after that because it just reminded me of the Atletico game. The Atletico game was the same exact situation. End of the game, 89th minute. They play the ball out. Nuno Mendes doesn't close. I can't remember who it was. I don't know if it was Angel Correa or whoever it was, Atletico. He doesn't close him down. They play a switch of play on the other side of the field and first attempt on goal for the most part. And that pretty much almost that whole second half, and they win the game. So it's just, like I said, it's little situations like that we kind of like get lackadaisical in like those weird kind of phrases of play that we need to like really, really hyper focus on because those are the games and those are the situations that get you to the next round, that get you to the final, that get you that cup with the big ears. And that's what we still need to hone in on. So yeah, it's a hard one to swallow, man. Hard one to swallow today.
Oh, it was so disappointing right at the end there, and you knew that was it. I'll start with the positives from that goal, which was after it went in, you had Ousmane Dembele clapping and smiling and encouraging and saying like it was late in the game, but he didn't lose faith. At least he didn't show it, and I love seeing that as we talked about in years past earlier. In years past, anytime a decision goes against them, they let in a goal, heads go down, here comes the collapse. I love seeing Dembele like trying to like rally the troops a little bit. Like, come on, guys, we still got this. We've got some time. We're playing well. Let's keep it moving. Let's get a goal and send this back to Anfield. So I love seeing that. Let's start with a little bit about what you were saying. So Marquinhos, I don't know if I put the blame 100% on him because I think he's doing the best with the physical tools that he has. He was going up against Nunez, and I don't like him in an aerial duel against a player like Nunez, and I think it speaks to the need for another center back that is like a William Pacho. Like if we can get Konate, if you had Pacho and Konate there, does Konate win that duel, and does he clean that up? You talked about a lot of these kind of like pinball goals where the ball will be lobbed in and the ball kind of bounces around and kind of these sloppy goals are going in. And I think it's because we don't have that other center back that can really make those clear clearances and win those aerial duels and push the ball out wide and then regroup. He sometimes comes up second best. So I don't know if I blame him, but I think that just underscores the need to maybe strengthen that position in the summer. I think if you're going to put any blame, I probably put a little bit more blame on Nuno Mendes. Unfortunately, he didn't track back.
Yeah.
He let Harvey Elliott just run right past them. PSG, the defenders that were back, they all got sucked in on Nunez, and you and I could have made that pass. Elliott's running clear through. Mendes is 10 yards behind him trying to catch up, and it was an easy finish. I didn't think the finish was had a lot of power to it. I've watched it several times, and you would hope a world class goalkeeper like Donnarumma would have been able to make that save. I think you mentioned he did get his hand to it, which almost makes it worse. Like, you got to have a stronger hand. You faced one goal on target the entire game, and you let it in, and it was one that you got your hand to. So I have to say it's kind of like in NFL, American football. Usually when a receiver, if the ball hits their hands, they got to catch it. And
Yeah.
that's just what you expect from a professional wide receiver, for example. When a goalkeeper gets their hand to the ball like that, I expect them to keep it out. When Kvara scored with that curling shot, Allison couldn't even get to it. Credit. Great goal from Kvara. Donnarumma's got to make that save. And then I'll also go back to the beginning of the move. What did Allison do? He started it. That long pass right to Nunez that created trouble. Donnarumma can't do that.
Yeah,
So
that's
if you're
another
not
point
going to
I didn't
be
bring
able
up.
to play the ball deep like that and put another team under pressure late in the game to steal a goal like that, and you're letting in a goal that you got your hand to, oh man, and we've seen it time after time. People will know, listen to this, I've been the biggest Donnarumma defender, and I still will say he's had really good moments. We kind of joking that ever since he got kicked in the face, he's been playing really well. But then you see moments like this, and it makes you think twice. And if there's a goalkeeper out there, I don't know. I think it's certainly a position they're going to look at and see what opportunities are this summer, because he's looking for a contract extension, and I didn't like that. I didn't like what I saw there from Donnarumma, but I think I'm with you. I don't blame anyone. I think it was a collective lapse, and we've seen it so many times. I joked that the Champions League writers, they need a new script for PSG, because my goodness, we have seen this over and over. But any reaction to anything I mumbled about there?
Yeah, no, it's a good point. When you talked about the ball out from Allison, that's something I didn't really make note of, and it's true because not all goalkeepers have that ability. Ederson from Man City is probably one of the best ones who can, ping a ball, 60 yards towards an attacker, say a striker for hold up play, Ramos or Holland or whoever the case may be, might be, the 9 on the team. But when a keeper can't do that, or even really offers to do that often, it forces the team to play out of the back all the time. So then statistically, you're going to be put under pressure more often. And that goes back to, remember that happened last year, the home leg against Barcelona, when that third goal, was it the third goal? Yeah, it was the third goal that we conceded. When Pedri played in Rafinha on that kind of looping ball over the top after Donnarumma played that ridiculously ball out. But collective goal. And we'll see. Obviously we know Lucas Chevalier is one that's been talked about. I would still like to see our Russian get a good chance. He seems like he's young. He doesn't have the experience, but he seems to be able to be very quick reactive on shots. I remember, you remember what it was maybe 2 months ago now when we played Lens in the Coupe de France away, in that shootout, he had 2 stops in that shootout that made us go through. So from what I've seen from Safanov, he's pretty good. We just haven't seen him play enough. And the bad thing about, with, world football, and you have these high paid, top players, if you're going to pay him, you have to play him, otherwise, why are you paying them? We do have a tough decision to close it on this note with that goal. That's kind of up to Luis Enrique and Luis Campos and Nasser, but I don't know. If they don't extend him.
He has moments where he plays really well.
He does.
A double save recently, but the problem is Allison showed you the difference between his level, which is I think A tier, and then Donnarumma, who
Donnarumma's like a B plus,
yes,
and Thibaut Courtois and Allison are like A.
Yeah.
And so that's the difference between you winning the Champions League and you not winning the Champions League. Is
I
your
mean,
goal?
it comes down to that. Allison made all of those saves. It should have probably been 2-0 at halftime PSG, but he keeps his team in it. And then late on, he boots the ball down to Nunez, who he knows has the advantage against Marquinhos, and ball pinballs around. And what the hell do you know? We got a goal for Liverpool. It's like, so Allison basically won this game on both ends of the pitch for his team. That's the difference. And that I don't know how many goalkeepers are out there. That's why I said they may not even be available. We may not even be able to afford a goalkeeper like that. So we may have no other choice but to stay with Donnarumma. But that's the level that we're talking about that PSG need to get to at that position.
Yeah.
That's just frustrating. I just watched that goal again. All right, let's try to switch gears as we wrap up this show. Let's try to be a little bit more, hopefully, positive, because I'm feeling a little bit deflated right now. But one goal deficit, you're going to Anfield. It's not insurmountable. It's not impossible. How are you feeling going into that match next Tuesday? Can PSG get it done? What do they need to do? They're going to be in the blue Jordan 4th kit with the wings. You know, we love that kit. It was good luck against Man City. Can they get it done? What do they need to do?
I think with the way the game went today, barring the scoreline, I think they're happy because all week, players prepare for the match. They do whatever they need to do on the training field, this, that, and the other. But you never know what's going to happen until you get on the field. And now they know what they can do against this team. Honestly, the Anfield situation and playing away from, to me, I don't care about any of that because a lot of these players are young. A lot of these players are hungry. A lot of these players have already played in hostile atmospheres, whether it's Marquinhos, Dembele, Donnarumma, Hakimi, Vitinha, João Neves, Kvaratskhelia coming from Napoli. A lot of these players already know what it's like to play in a hostile atmosphere. To me, like I listen to a lot of this, the pregame analysis all week. PSG versus Liverpool. They're not going to know what they're going to do when they're playing in Anfield. To me, playing in Marseille is almost harder than playing in Anfield, and that's because people don't really watch League One. People don't really understand the city-wide rivalry between Marseille and Parisians. So I think going into this next match, they know what they can do. Granted, Liverpool might be a little bit up for it, but at the same time, I think the goal could be a blessing in disguise because one, Liverpool doesn't have to go out and go for it as hard as they do if it was a 0-0 draw, because then they realized they still had to score. Where now they're a goal up, they realize they don't necessarily have to score. We do. And that Luis Enrique literally said himself, what's there to lose? We have nothing to lose. The same thing going again away last year at Montjuic in Spain in the second leg against Barcelona. We were down. We had nothing to lose. So why not lay it all out? I think what the promising things we can see, one, and we all knew about it, is that Dembele can absolutely destroy the outside backs of Liverpool. Barcola the same. So I think that's going to be one thing that Arne Slot is probably going to really try to clamp down on. But at the same time, Andy Robertson can't control Dembele. I don't think any outside back in world football can control Dembele. So I think if we can continue to attack the width, I think if we can get some more attacking play with the midfield with João Neves and Vitinha kind of pushing up a little bit further and getting more involved in the attacking third, because a lot of it was Kvaratskhelia and Dembele and Marquinhos. Hakimi kind of had a quiet night. He wasn't his typical.
Yeah, I agree with you. We haven't mentioned him all podcast.
He wasn't the typical. Yeah, he wasn't the typical Hakimi who was super high pushed up, and I think it was because he didn't want to leave in space, which is correct thing to do. But now it's like you got to go for it. So I think that with Dembele and Hakimi linking up and just terrorizing Andy Robertson, I think that's going to be one thing that we know we can already do. And then at the same time, that Barcola realizes that he can get in behind, which we already knew as well, Konate and their other outside back, which is Trent Alexander-Arnold. So I feel like we know what we can do. We know that we can put them under pressure. We know that we can pin them back. We know that we can zip the ball around them with ease. So it's a confident feeling. And honestly, like going away from home, yeah, it's a hard thing to do. But at the end of the day, like this isn't the same team from 5 years ago going into, the second leg in Madrid or the second leg in Bayern or the second leg wherever. And I wouldn't say playing timid, but I just don't see that in our team anymore. Like, I just don't. And I think it's because a lot of those players, all those players, with the exception of Marquinhos, have all moved on. They have a whole new mentality in the club, and a lot of these players are hungry and they want to prove themselves. Um, so I just feel like we have the ability to do what we need to do. We just need to clean it up on a couple other things, and just tidy up and just clean up the finishing and get that early goal. I think you'll agree with this. We have to get that early goal to get into their mind psychologically, to quiet that Anfield crowd down, to be able to give us a fighter's chance. If we get that early goal, it's going to be game on. Because surprisingly, this probably had to be one or two games all season that we didn't score. I don't know how many games in League One ended in a 0-0 draw, but I think it was only maybe one, maybe two. But just for us not to score in a game, regardless of whether it's a cup competition or League One, is just surprising. So I don't feel like they're going to be able to keep us out the entire game going away from Anfield. I'd like to hear what you think about that, as far as like our statistics when it comes to scoring in the games and not scoring. I just feel like surprisingly they kept us out because of Allison, but I just don't feel like they're going to be able to keep us out for another 90 minutes. Absolutely no way.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think to expect him to have that level of a performance again, not to say that it's impossible, but it's probably unlikely. I mean, he was unbelievable tonight. I can't probably look at the stat how many saves he has, but assume that he isn't making that many saves. Yeah, I think PSG are going to score. After the match, the Liverpool manager, he said, "We're the lucky ones." It's clear they were the much better team today. So he's admitting it. Then you go to Luis Enrique. He said, "Come back at Anfield next week. Of course, we can do it. We're going to do it." The result is very unfair. They shot once and they scored. The best player was their goalie. It's a bit weird. I'm very proud of the team. Everything that Luis Enrique has been saying about not being scared of the moment, not being scared of another team, going in there and playing their best, and basically, hey, if we get beat, we get beat because the other team was better, and that's what happened with the goalkeeper. They had the goalkeeper just was played out of his mind, and that was ultimately the difference. And PSG didn't take their chances, and they had that one mistake at the back. So sometimes it's a cruel game. And so, yeah, now the slate gets wiped clean. I think that it was a little bit unfortunate Liverpool scored so late, because we have seen PSG be able to bounce back from letting in a goal in a match. They just needed some time to answer, and they didn't get that in this one. So I think over the next few days, they're going to be seething. They're going to be itching to get back out on the pitch. Um, if I'm not mistaken, so on Saturday they have to go to Rennes. That'll be a challenging game. I think that that'll be a good kind of run up into the match on Tuesday. Try to keep that unbeaten streak in Ligue 1 going. So I think that will keep them sharp, and I think they're going to score goals in that one. And so I think when they go to Liverpool, it's almost, I mean, I'm curious to get your thoughts on this. In this match, they came out flying, trying to score goals. And now that they're a goal down, they're going to have to go to Anfield and basically come out with the same strategy. Nothing really changes. If anything, they have to get forward even more now. There's more of a pressure to do that. Say they had a 2-goal lead. I feel like they would have been sitting back too much, and then that crowd could have been overwhelming, and the team and Liverpool could have overwhelmed them, on the attacking end. Is it almost a little bit better that they're going in with a chip on their shoulder, knowing they're the better team, being angry and wanting to right this wrong? I almost feel like that might be a little bit better. Am I crazy?
No, no. I feel like it's kind of like, I think I said this last year. It's like when you're in a fight and you finally get punched in the mouth and you realize there's someone in front of you trying to kick your butt. That's when you wake up and you're like, hey, like if I don't do something, I'm gonna get beat up. It takes the pressure off of us. And I have 100% full faith in Luis Enrique, to where he will have these players in the right mindset to go to that stadium and get a result. Because I think that's probably one of the most like noticeable things for like all of the real supporters like myself and you and a lot of people we interact with online, who support PSG, is that he's probably had the most glorifying like change in the club culture probably ever. this post QSI. I don't think any manager, even Laurent Blanc, has been able to like implement the strong mentality, style of play, finishing, collective cohesion, team spirit that we've seen in the last 2 years. Even when Mbappe was there last year, you could see it start to form, but this year it's really like come to the limelight and the forefront every single game. You
Yes.
know, in even games like today where you lose and you're like, well, yeah, we lost, but we didn't get blown away. Yeah, we lost, but we played really good football. Yeah, we lost, but we played really strong. And I think going into the game, he's going to emulate that. The players realize that these players that they're playing up against are just as good as them, if not as good as them, or some are better, some are not so much better. But I feel like we can do it, and I think that's just because it comes down to the mindset that's inside the dressing room nowadays. That they realize that no matter who they're going up against, they can get a result. I feel like the result we can get one. I think the stress of not having a goal in hand is something that you can kind of relax on, because too many times we've seen it that we have a lead going away from home or even going back from home, and we play, to not win, play to not win. Well, you got to go win. What's the point? Why not? And I think I don't know if he's going to change the formation and put Doué in there, but it's like, why not? Why not put Doué in there with Kvaratskhelia, with Barcola and Dembele? And why not just go for it?
I might even go with the same lineup. Hopefully, knock on wood, everyone's healthy. I might go, but maybe you start making those substitutions
A
and
little bit
changes.
earlier on.
Yeah, a little bit earlier on. Maybe you bring
Yeah.
Doué knowing you got to chase that goal. Yeah, I mean, I think there is something to be said about going in there as the underdog. No one's really expecting you, this young PSG going to Anfield against the Premier League leaders. Yeah, no one is going to be, the media at large, football fans. People may not think that they're going to be able to get it done, but from what we saw tonight, yes, the loss is the loss, and that's the only number that counts. But PSG dominated every statistical category, and it was a good measuring stick for them, because early in the season they played Arsenal, didn't look that great, got beat. They went to Bayern Munich, didn't play well, but something changed since that Salzburg match, and since then they haven't really had that upper echelon test, to see how good we really are now. Where do we stack up? And now they know we should have beat Liverpool by probably 2 goals tonight. We ran them off the pitch. They got lucky and stole a goal late. And I love that if they go to that stadium angry and pissed off, that is the mentality they need to have. I almost think they shouldn't do any press conferences. Just go in there. We're not talking to media. We're
Yeah.
here. This is a business trip.
Yeah, just the fire in your eye and mouth closed, just
Mm-hmm.
100% fully focused, And like I said, I think that's the biggest thing, is that the pressure's off us now, because most people don't expect us to go to Anfield and win. Most teams, regardless, Premier League teams, other teams in the Champions League go there, they don't win. So
Real Madrid lost.
Real
Yeah,
Madrid
early.
lost, and so it's like, why would they expect us to win? So
Exactly.
why not just go out, hang it out, and go for glory. So I think that's another positive, is that when you set your expectations low and you exceed those, then it's even more glorifying and more reassuring that your skill set of what you're trying to accomplish is working. So yeah, it's all there. It was a disappointing loss, but not that disappointing, because of we know our ability. So yeah, so much to play for.
Give me a score. What happens? Give me a score, because I don't. We probably won't have you on before the game. So give me your score line prediction here now.
I feel like we're gonna get one no matter what. But when are we gonna get that one? Before them or after them? I don't know. I feel that this might go to extra time.
That's how I'm feeling too.
Yeah, I feel like it's gonna go to extra time, because I don't see them keeping us out at all. So I feel like we'll get one, they'll get one, we'll get one, and it'll
Yeah.
go 2-2 at 90. And then after that, I don't really know after that. It's hard to predict any kind of game after 90 minutes, whether it's World Cup, Copa Libertadores, Euros, Champions League. It's hard. So I feel like it's going to go to extra time. And maybe we can squeak through with a 3-2 victory. Dembele, Barcola, Krava, maybe a random header from Marquinhos. Somebody goes in on goal and we get a penalty finally go our way. So I just feel like it's probably going to maybe be 2-2 by 90 minutes in, and then it goes to extra time, and we'll just have to have our fingers crossed and chewing off our fingernails after that point. So, yeah, I think
Yeah.
we'll put some in, and it's gonna be a nail biter this next match for sure.
It's been a while since we went to England and had a big Champions League win. I'm thinking something
I think it
like
was
Thiago Silva's
Chelsea.
header against
Yeah,
Chelsea.
no, we won Chelsea's second leg in
Hmm. It's a while ago
2015,
now.
2016 in the round of
Yeah,
16.
like 10 years ago.
Yeah, about 10 years ago. I think Di Maria got a goal, and I want to say it was Rabiot. I know Di
Hmm.
Maria got one, and I don't know if it was Rabiot or Cavani. No, it was Rabiot. No, it was Di Maria and Zlatan. Now I
Yeah.
remember. We played in a white kit.
Yes.
Um,
And so
and
I'm thinking something like that is going to happen. I think Liverpool score. I think PSG are going to score. I think PSG are going to have to get a goal late to send it to extra time. I don't think
yeah,
anyone scores in extra time. So, like you, I think it's probably going to be 2-2 with PSG getting that late second goal miraculously. I think our fingernails are going to be gone. Our toenails are going to be gone. We're going to be pulling our hair out.
yeah,
It's just going to be crazy. And I think we do get to extra time somehow. And then, right, it goes to penalty kicks after that, after the extra time.
yeah. That other game was Chelsea 2015 with the Thiago Silva header.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So we're due every decade, I think, right? We deserve a big win in England in the Champions League, so why not? We'll go with something like that, and yeah, you get to penalty kicks, and oh my, I'll go with PSG, but penalty kicks you just can't even predict. But I
yeah.
think we have better attackers, so
Going
one
out
would
on
think,
pens, I wouldn't be so disappointed
yeah, I
because
wouldn't be no,
the
absolutely
luck
not.
of the
They
draw with
battled.
penalties, honestly.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's 100% agree. So I would applaud that effort if they were able to get to there. So that's funny. We're both sort of on the same page there that we think it's going to be 2-2 extra time, then go into penalties, and who the hell knows. But I think we'll both pick PSG to win, and why the hell not? In this match, they should have won. Everyone, even if you're neutral, you don't have a dog in the fight. Everyone, if this was your first football match, you would have said, "Wow, that PSG team, they're pretty dominant." And so, well, as we end this podcast, just immensely proud of the team. I think they made supporters all proud tonight. Disappointing to lose, but hey, it's a cruel game, as Luis Enrique said. Sometimes that happens, and things don't always go your way. But really proud of this young team. We really are building something special. I think Mark Damon said we're maybe a transfer window away from really competing for this thing, and so I like that we have this measuring stick in Liverpool, and we see we're just missing that little bit of quality, maybe in between the posts. But we're so close, and we're not out of this yet. So I have a lot of faith. So, Drew, any last thoughts before we let you run?
No, I just want to say thanks for having me on. Thanks for
Yeah,
everybody who's going to listen to the podcast, and thanks for putting out all the great content that you take your time out of your personal life to
appreciate
do.
it.
It's much appreciated on Substack and on Twitter and the website and everything. Yeah, just we just got to go into next week with the right mentality and hope for the best result. If not, we'll just build for next year and hopefully win the league and Coupe de France. All you can do is just be proud of this young team because we're moving in the right direction. So uh,
Yes.
we got the right spirit for a turnaround victory next week.
PSG win against Rennes to keep the unbeaten streak going.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, why not? It's a bit of a trap game, but I think it's a good time. Let's see those goals going into the back of the net again. Let's get used to scoring some goals. I didn't like being shut out tonight. Very frustrating, but we turned the page. We've got that game against Rennes to look forward to, and then yeah, trip to Liverpool early next week on Tuesday. So set your calendars, get ready for that one. Drew, thanks so much for coming on here late on a Wednesday night. Really appreciate it, and thank all of you out there. I have a feeling a lot of people are going to be listening to this one, so thank you so much for listening to this high quality podcast. Really appreciate your support. We'll have a lot more on all things PSG, but until next time, bye for now.
Au revoir.